Well, I wanted to talk about what I most noticed at this conference and some of the most recurrent terms, and one of them is the social license to operate and compliance. So those have come up a lot in terms of companies complying with social needs and social requirements, often from a sort of mitigating political risk angle and mitigating regulatory risk angle. And what we're looking at really is to move from a compliance mindset to an opportunity mindset. To say you're not just complying because you have to and because your social license to operate has to be maintained, but it's actually a business opportunity. And if you do certain things, you'll actually benefit from it just as much as the community will. And so this is the angle that we're taking, and that I've seen is a trend that other people are discussing as well, is how, for instance, do communities and companies work together to fight tuberculosis in a mining context that can have a lot of revenue potential, as well as mining infrastructure and how to share mining infrastructure with communities and with other mines. So both of those are actually core to the revenue function and the profit function of companies. They can cut costs by doing that, and communities can benefit. So that's really moving from this compliance to an opportunity mindset that I think is one of the most encouraging things of this conference. The tuberculosis angle is that a lot of the workers in mines are affected by tuberculosis, and often the way that mining companies address that is by setting up a hospital and treating the tuberculosis once it's happened. But the problem is that they have to pay a lot keeping these people on healthcare, etc., when they're out of work, and they have to find replacement workers. Whereas if they invested ex ante in prevention and actually spent that as part of their costs of investment in the mine, there would be lots of prevented healthcare costs. So that's something that should be part of every mine's business model, but for now is just addressed a little bit too much on the corporate social responsibility side, but not really integrated into the full business model. When companies are investing in mineral deposits, for instance, there's in countries African countries, for instance, where there isn't the existing infrastructure, often the company will have to create its own infrastructure, whether it's its rail line or its own power plant. And the issue with that is that sometimes, depending on how it's negotiated, the company can secure and lock down access rights for that entire rail line, and then future companies can't come in. And so that's a challenge, because it means that it creates a monopoly, and then future deposits aren't really exploited. So how is sharing actually in the interest of the company itself is that if there's extra capacity, then they can lease that extra capacity to other companies, get extra revenue from them, and even to companies that work in the agricultural sector, for instance, and not just mining, which means that they have a more diversified revenue stream, which doesn't only depend on the price of minerals, which, as we know, is quite variable right now, but it could also be supplemented by agricultural producers' payments to use the rail or to use the power. So that's a sort of revenue opportunity for the mining company, and it also mitigates political risk and creates more of a community involvement as well.